Hey guys, it's Isaac, and I apologize for the background music. If you can hear it, my neighbors are super loud today, but this is my attempt at making a very complicated story super simple. So if you don't mind this style of movie making, let me know because I'd really like to do it again. So this part of my story is part 2 of the 10-year series that I'm doing right now that will end on New Year's. So if you want to continue with these stories, all I gotta do is follow me, and I'll just continue making them. So in 2001, I started high school, and during this time, there were 3 main components to my life that were extremely significant to me. The first was Cadets. I was a cadet, and I was proud of it. I was proud to wear my uniform, and I worked really hard to achieve the success that I did as a kid in Cadets. The second was SFETT, which is really funny to say, but SFETT is a part of me. It's a part of my life, and I can't wait to tell you about that in just a minute. And the third big area of my life was just my family life, and I think that's where I'll start because I'm sure that's what makes the most sense. But my dad, my mom, and my brother and I were living in a guest house owned by my grandfather, and I thought it was awesome. It was very small, it was very crowded, and it was super hot because we didn't have air conditioning, but it was home and I loved it. Our backyard was huge, and it was like having a park in our backyard, and when the cousins would come over, it was always a lot of fun because we had a lot of room to run around and mess around with, and it was just so much fun being a kid back then. You know, we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have high-speed internet, and we didn't have, social media or anything like that. You know, it was just a really, really humble time to live. And my parents were very hardworking, and they worked really hard to give us what, we had. And maybe I wasn't so grateful back then, but I see now how much effort it took for them to give us what they have, and I'm very grateful for all the hard work that they've put in over the years. Cadets was an accident. I didn't want to take PE when I started middle school, so I signed up for Cadets, and man, I fell in love with it. I love being part of that culture, and I met all of my friends there, and those are friends that I have to this day. These are friends that have even donated to my campaign. Some of them I haven't even seen in a few years, so I've met some lifelong friends there, and I am totally grateful to have them in my life. SFETT is a group of kids, or at least it was a group of kids that was at my high school that were making movies, and they were doing so at a time when YouTube wasn't even in existence yet. As a matter of fact, for us to put video on the internet back then, we had to compress the video really small, so it was very painful to sit through and watch. It was usually downloaded over a dial-up modem, so for a couple of minutes of video at a very, very small size, it would take about half an hour to download, if you can imagine that. And in order for us to publish the video on the internet, we had to create our own website from scratch because there really wasn't an easy way to make websites yet. So just to give you kids an idea of how hard it was to get videos on the internet, it was painful, but these kids were doing it, and man, I was infatuated with them. We had access to a state-of-the-art classroom, and I always saw it as a computer lab because that's where my dad worked. My dad worked in computer labs, and so that's what I called it for a long time, but it wasn't that. It wasn't a computer lab. It was so much different. It was so much more. The people there were not as interested in the technology as I was. They probably could care less about it, actually. What really interested them was telling stories. So all of the cool tech that we had, all the really big computers with 1 gigabyte of memory and dual core processors and stuff like that. Actually, it wasn't dual core, it was just dual processors, 2 processors and 1 computer. Anyways, I'm blabbering about technology again. Anyways, these guys were really excited about the idea of telling stories, and all the tech in our classroom, it was a means of telling their stories. They were just tools, and it was really different for me coming from a purely technical background to going into an environment where all of these cool technical gadgets and stuff like that is just used to do something even more important, something more big. And it was a huge part of my adolescence. I was surrounded by people that had aspirations and goals and that were deadline driven and that collaborated and held each other accountable and took ownership of their classroom and their education. It was so different from anything that I had experienced before, being part of a public education system. And it was just the coolest thing in the world to be in this classroom that cost millions of dollars to create, to have just access to, $5,000 camera equipment and very, very expensive computers. And it was just very exciting. I felt so important being there. And I felt like all the work that I was doing was really important. And it was, to an extent. Every year we put on a community film festival. We did it for free for the community. And all year we worked towards this film festival. And it was a lot of fun. And I will never forget those memories. I still have all of these guys as my friends to this day. A lot of them are my best friends. And we collaborate the same way and we help each other the same way. And yeah, another group of lifelong friends under my belt. After a few years of making movies with SFETT, I had developed a lot of skills. I was making movies, I was making music, I was taking pictures, some of it professionally as well. We were being hired out of high school to shoot weddings and shoot community events and stuff like that. And man, it was just such a cool opportunity for us to have. But I was meeting so many cool people and stuff, but there was an opportunity that was coming my way that was going to change everything. And I was not ready for it. One day, I was told by my teacher that helped build this classroom, that I was going to be on the Disney Channel. And you heard me right. I was going to be on the Disney Channel. And you gotta remember, we're in a small, poor community, and kids like me really don't get opportunities like that. So when he said it, it sounded a little too good to be true, so I didn't think much of it. Nonetheless, a few weeks later, Disney showed up to our school and they auditioned a couple of us and they picked me. And before I knew it, there was a crew of about 50 people in my backyard and we were making a video. I actually had a fever the day that we shot, and there was just so many hot lights on me and stuff like that. It was like the hottest day of summer, and it was very, very uncomfortable, but I was so excited to have this opportunity, so I did my best, and it became something. I was never told when the commercial would air. It wasn't really a commercial, it was like a 2-minute spot, and it was shown in prime time. So while people were watching That's So Raven and Smart Guy and all those cool Disney Channel movies, you remember those, but my little 2-minute spot would come in between. And so whenever kids were watching these big primetime movies and they sat through commercials, which we did back then, they would end up seeing my face, they would see my family, and before I knew it, everybody knew my name. One day I was at Six Flags with my cousins and these girls started following us, and one of them came up and asked if I was the guy on the Disney Channel, and I had no idea that it aired, so I just assumed that it did, and I said, yeah, I guess that's me. So that day I ended up taking pictures and signing autographs, and you can only imagine what it was like going back to school and realizing that everybody in high school still watches the Disney Channel and knows who you are. Because up until that point, I thought I was totally invisible because I'm so introverted and definitely not outgoing. So it was so weird for me to all of a sudden be noticed by people and be asked to sign autographs and take pictures and things. And man, just a weird thing for someone like me to experience, but it was pretty cool. About a year into that little 15 seconds of fame, I got some news that was going to change my life and change my family's life forever. But that I am going to leave for the next video. So if you didn't mind the whole Draw My Lifestyle video, let me know. Otherwise, I'll try and do a different style of video for next one. But if you liked it, great. If you can do me a huge favor, I am crowdfunding right now. I am fundraising on the internet so I could finish my education and go back to my career as a computer technician and administrator. I'm trying to achieve these certifications that are very expensive to learn and also very expensive to test for. Anything that you do is going to be greatly appreciated by myself and by my family. We've worked really hard to get this far, and I hope that we can complete this goal because it would just mean the world to us. So thanks for listening to me, guys, for about 12 minutes, a little bit longer than I wanted to, but yeah, I hope you liked it, and I'll see you next week. Bye.